You know that moment when you realize that nothing seems to really matter, not in dramatic way, more like a quiet, heavy feeling that follows you around. That question of, okay, so what now? Here's the thing, Nietzsche wasn't cheering for that feeling. He actually thought it was one of the most dangerous psychological traps a culture could fall into. He saw nihilism as a kind of collective illness, not because people questioned religion, but because they tore down old meanings without knowing how to live afterward. And he was convinced most people wouldn't even notice it happening. When Nietzsche talked about God being dead, he wasn't talking about belief or disbelief. He was talking about something much deeper collapsing. The idea that life came with built-in instructions. For centuries, meaning arrived prepackaged. Suffering had a reason. Morality had an authority. Death had an explanation. Then science, reason, and skepticism slowly pulled that structure apart. Not out of malice, just honesty. And once that structure was gone, Nietzsche asked an uncomfortable question. If nothing guarantees meaning anymore, what keeps us from doing anything at all? If good and evil aren't written into the universe, why be decent? Why not lie when it helps? Why not betray when it's convenient? Why not become cruel if cruelty works? That's what terrified him. Not chaos, but emptiness. Look around today. How many people you know feel like they are just killing time until life ends? They fill the silence with endless scrolling, shows they don't remember, purchases that lose their shine in days. They work jobs they hate, follow routines they never choose, and call it normal. Nietzsche called this passive nihilism. Not rage, not destruction, just resignation. This is what he meant by the last man, someone who traded depth and ambition for comfort and safety. No risk, no longing for greatness, just routine, distraction, and the illusion of contentment. But here's the part most people miss. Nietzsche didn't want you to stop there. Nihilism wasn't the destination, it was the crossing. Once external meaning disappears, something else becomes possible. You get to decide what matters. That's what he meant by the revaluation of values. If no higher authority hands you purpose, then responsibility falls on you, not to obey, but to create. This is where the idea of the Übermensch comes in, not a superhero, not domination over others, and definitely not the twisted political caricature that came later. The Übermensch is someone who looks at a meaningless universe and refuses to collapse. Someone who doesn't need cosmic approval to live well. They choose their values because they admire the kind of person those values create. Think of an artist. The universe doesn't care if they create or not. Still, they do. Not because it's required, but because they decided it matters. That's will to power, not control over others, but mastery over oneself, shaping chaos into something intentional. Compare that to a life lived on autopilot. Church because that's what people do, marriage because it's time, career because it pays, kids because it's the next step, never stopping to ask, is this mine or was it handed to me? Nietzsche would say that's not living, that's obedience. And yes, questioning everything is exhausting. It's far easier to follow a script, but comfort has a price. Without a purpose you choose, hardship feels unbearable. Every obstacle hits harder when there is no reason behind it. That's why Nietzsche talked about amor fati, loving your fate, not tolerating life, not wishing it were different, but embracing every part of it, even the painful ones, as necessary. He lived in constant physical pain, isolation, and illness, and still wrote that greatness means wanting nothing to be different, not the past, not the future, not even the suffering. Then there is his strangest thought experiment, eternal recurrence. Imagine being told you will live this exact life again and again. Every mistake, every embarrassment, every dull afternoon, forever. How does that land? If the idea feels unbearable, it might mean you are living a life you don't actually want. If you could accept it, it means you've built enough meaning to stand behind your choices. Nietzsche wasn't dragging humanity into despair. He was trying to stop it from drowning there. Science can explain how things work, but it can't tell you why you should care. And without new values, people don't collapse dramatically. They slowly fade. Depression rises, motivation vanishes, lives stretch long but feel empty. His answer was simple and brutally demanding. Stop waiting for meaning to arrive. Stop outsourcing purpose to religion, destiny, or the universe. You are the source. You choose what deserves your energy. You decide what's worth suffering for. That responsibility is heavy, but it's the price of freedom. Nietzsche died alone, misunderstood, never seeing the influence his ideas would have. Yet he kept creating anyway. That's not nihilism, that's defiance. That's looking into the void and saying, I will build something meaningful here, even if nothing asks me to. And maybe that's the real challenge he leaves us with. Not to deny that life lacks built-in meaning, but to respond by creating something that makes it worth living anyway.